This is deliveranceministry.fm videocast number 33. Hello everyone, welcome to once again another episode of deliveranceministry.fm, where we give you proven insights about the demonic realm and deliverance ministry so you can be more effective in waging spiritual warfare. Dr. Don Ibbotson here again, and blessed as always to have my colleague, Dr. Phyllis Tarbox, sitting beside me.
Aw, thank you, Don.
Good to have you here. It's a beautiful day here in Tampa, Florida, where we record these. We've gotten through the storms okay, no major damage. The kids miss school a little bit, but a little bit of flooding.
Yeah,
but,
we got flooded, yeah.
Yeah, it's been here, but big hurricanes so far haven't hit us, praise the Lord. Thank you for watching over us. But we're doing well. Ministry's moving ahead, and we've got some really exciting things to talk to you about today. It's a topic that we hear about from people from time to time. And you probably hear it in church, where they talk about being involved in yoga classes.
No, we're going after the idol.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to give you our perspective. Obviously, as you can see from the title, or if you for this podcast, it's called we say Yoga, an Open Door for Demonic Torment. We're not big fans of it. We're going to tell you why. At the end of it, give you hopefully some other alternatives and things you can look at that will be more helpful to you. Want to encourage you to listen to the end. We're going to talk about briefly, as we've had for some time, an opportunity to get a free download of our Deliverance Ministry Plain and Simple e-manual. Well, then we're also going to talk to you and tell you about a new program that we're just implementing. It's called the Ministry Partners Program. Actually, the formal name is our Warrior Partner, where we give you, the listener, and other people who are associated with the ministry to become committed financially to help us in the ministry. So we'll talk about that at the end. So let's move right into it, to the discussion today. As I mentioned, it is quite a controversial topic. Quite frankly, some get offended when you.
Yep, don't turn us off yet.
Yeah, don't get, you're right. If you please just listen to us here, and many just don't see a problem with it. And we'll talk about the whole concept of Christian yoga classes as well. That's out there. So we want to give you our insights and hopefully add some light to the discussion and not any smoke.
Right.
So let's start off and just move right into it. Phyllis, can tell us, what is yoga? What's behind it?
Well, Don, it's a Hindu spiritual and aesthetic discipline. Part of it includes breathing control and meditation and the adoption of specific body postures, which originated in ancient India. So the word yoga means union. I found that interesting. And the goal of it is to unite one's transitory or temporary self with the infinite Brahman, the Hindu concept of God. This God is not a literal being, but it's an impersonal spiritual substance that is one with nature and the cosmos. It's
much different than the Jesus we worship.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I know. It's pantheism, and the belief is that everything is God, and that reality consists only of the universe and nature. Because everything is God, the yoga philosophy makes no distinction between man and God. So it's very different.
And some of these concepts, when you talk about the whole, this pantheism and the view of the world and cosmos, I mean, it can make your head hurt.
It kind of makes me think of New Age. I don't know.
New Age aspects of it involved in it, but it's just gets very, esoteric. It's just hard to wrap your
Mother
brain around
Earth
it.
and
all these different things, exactly.
Right.
But so the origin of it.
It's from India.
Okay.
So it's originated in a Hindu religion. So, one of the things that we always talk about is, and you're good at this, about if the tree is planted and it's an orange tree, it should produce oranges, right? Well,
healthy trees should produce healthy fruit. Yep.
Right. Well, if it's a Hindu tree and its roots are in Hinduism, it's going to produce the spiritual effects of Hinduism, right? So
yes.
Yeah. So I'm always, that's my simple analogy on all of these things when I talk to people. Well, what's wrong with it? Well, if it's rooted and grounded in Hinduism, then you're going to get some spiritual component to it that's regarding that.
Well, in Hinduism, they have the whole notion of karma. You hear the word, people use the word karma. And so, what's the simplest explanation that we want to use here to help people understand the concept of karma?
Well, it's metaphysics. So yoga's metaphysics center around the quest to attain liberation from one's conditioning caused by past karma. So karma includes like baggage from prior lives, and underscoring the importance of reincarnation actually too. And so that's the way they look at it. It's like that cleansing when you're reincarnated. You're dumping all your karma from your past lives. Back. Yeah, it's like a purification process.
So what you did in the past life is kind of, now it's payback today. That's where people say, well, it's karma.
You're coming back.
You're reaping what you maybe sowed in an earlier life, which of course is completely non-biblical.
Okay, I see. That's true. Yeah, you're reaping and sowing. So the metaphysics part of it is really, it's a big thing with the karma. But then there's also the postures.
Well, I think that's the big thing, right? People focus on. The whole thing of yoga involves doing certain exercises and positions, right?
Right.
So what's the significance of
the
positions?
postures that are offered, they were originally set up to be offered to, get this, 330 million Hindu gods. That's a lot of gods.
Really? That's how many? Boy, I hope you don't have to memorize and recite them by name or from any kind of certificate.
Yeah, that would struggle. We've got one, right? Yoga postures they're offering to these gods. So if you do these postures, so if you do the postures and you do the breathing technique and the meditation, because there's really 3 parts to it, not just the spiritual, the postures, the breathing, and the meditation, then you'll be accepted by this God, little g God, and that's the real danger. So, so the postures are one. The other part is the breathing, and the breathing is, I'm going to say this properly, pranayama breathing.
Okay.
Prana is the Hindu word for life force, and the same concept as the word chi in some martial arts. So yoga breathing attempts to manipulate life energy. Right? No, that's in pretty much.
So that's a spiritual side of there's some breathing aspects to the to yoga, right? And so it's more than just breathing. It's more than just filling and exercising your lungs, if you like. You're trying to tap into this spiritual component, right?
You're trying to manipulate the life energy and and so in Ephesians 2:2, that's what makes me think of it is Satan's the prince and power of the air, so we're not talking about oxygen here.
That is an interesting thing. Other things about the prince of this world, but prince of the air, that's really interesting. Because to focus on that spectrum of the manipulating the energy in the air through and breathing it in, that really is. It's biblically, it's talked about that is exactly the demonic realm where the Satan is the prince of the air, like you said.
So you're assuming a position and you're breathing in this pranayama breathing. So you're meditating on and doing that. So the third area is that meditation piece that comes along with this.
Was there stretching things too, or they're involved?
Well, the stretchings are the postures that you take. Like there's different postures that pray to Shiva and different things like that. Those are the positions that you're.
And they can be taxing on your body. That's the stretching part of it. Right? They're not simple. They're not easy on your body in any way, shape, or form.
You have to be very gifted to be able to hold some of these poses. I got to say. Okay. But the third area of it is. The meditation or the emptying of the mind.
So you got the postures first of all, and the breathing, and then the third one is the
mind emptying, right? Emptying, okay. So the meditation, it's basically the meditation part. It's emptying it along so you can focus on this energy and whatever. But our scripture says we're transformed by the renewing of our mind, not the emptying of it, right?
Yeah, that's got to be such a difficult thing because our minds are always working. Things are coming in.
Especially yours and ours.
Well, it seems like it. And, people, they're always thinking about something. The Bible talks about taking their thoughts captive and you're not renewing our mind. But gosh, just the whole concept of emptying your mind. And so the idea behind that is as you empty the mind, what does that allow?
Well,
supposedly in the yoga allow.
Well, in the higher spiritual levels of this, the yoga guides people into astral travel, which is where people actually leave their bodies. So it's more like leaving the bodies and elevating into higher levels of
which people actually do. I mean, that is an occultic practice where so this people many times involved in yoga. I mean, it doesn't mean everybody who does yoga necessarily is doing astral travel, but what you're saying is that for many who are doing these astral projection, astral travel, that it's the same sort of concept of emptying the mind. And okay.
Well, now, different levels to this, because there's going to be a lot of people who say, well, my yoga doesn't do that. My yoga place does not do the spiritual component of the metaphysics and all of that. But so I had a client come in, and she had rationalized, and she was going to a yoga place, and I was really surprised. She's pretty sensitive to this stuff. And so she comes in and she says, well, I've been going, and there was some conflict in my spirit because I know about the poses and the breathing and stuff. But honestly, never felt that there was a spiritual component to any of it.
So why was she going? I'm curious. Did you remember what she said about why she even went?
She went for what they'll tell you is they go for the exercise portion of
the
it.
stretching part. Okay.
Yeah, because she's in really good shape. And so it's one way to keep in good shape. But anyway, she came in and she was really very agitated. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, I went in there one day and I could just spiritually pick up on the fact that the whole atmosphere in the whole place had shifted. And I was no longer comfortable in there anymore. So I went up to the owner and I said, have you done something different? Or is there some new practice or new meditation or something that's new that's going on that you're doing here that it just feels different? She was trying to be real nice. She went right up to the owner, and the owner said, yes, we feel like we've held back long enough from all of you, the metaphysical piece that goes with yoga. And so we are unleashing the entire spiritual force in here, so that we're going to bring you into the meditation, we're going to get you into the out-of-body experience. And she went into explaining this all to her. And of course, my client was mortified because she knew exactly what that meant.
Because she had just picked up on it. Did nobody talk to her?
Nobody talked to her.
She had any teaching. She just walked into the place, and the gift of discerning of spirits really just discerned what was going on, right?
She's she's pretty sensitive in that regard. So she came in and we had to, cancel a lot of the things that had come over her because she felt like she really had a breach just walking in there to begin with anyway, because there were other things that were there, but this is the one that really...
Because it was an open door really for her, right? Because she walked in willingly. It's not like, Christian believer can walk through a place like that, walk and not be affected. But if you're in there and willingly underneath that, which she was,
right?
At least she appeared to be, or was open to it, until unfortunately she had the discernment to say something was haywire.
Yes, and she knew it right away, so we had to pray through that. And the thing that I find with people that have gone into yoga or any form of New Age, or we talk about Reiki or any type of healing of that regard, there's a very similar spirit that enters in through these open doors, and it's a Kundalini spirit, and that and that's part of the yoga piece. But what it'll do is Kundalini spirit actually comes in through these open doors.
Well, what is a Kundalini
well,
spirit?
it's a spirit that actually comes in and it'll wrap up your spine.
So it's a demonic spirit of some kind that you bring in, or invite in, I guess.
Yeah, it's an invitation in, and it comes in through a lot of these New Age or the Hindu postures. And what it does is it'll come up and it'll absolutely wrap the spine. It's like the double snakes on the medical staff. Comes right up the spine, and it wraps it, goes back and forth, and usually there's an epicenter right at the base of the spine and the top of the neck. So when we pray out they're ugly spirits too. They're very ugly. They're very powerful. And so when we pray these out of people, you'll actually see them start writhing.
Like a snake.
Yeah.
A snake riding around.
Yeah. They'll start, and it has a lot of tentacles to it. And it's very painful oftentimes when we call it out. But a lot of times what you'll see is people have severe back pain from this sort of thing. And so, barring anything else, the Kundalini spirit needs to go. So if you've had open doors to this, if you've been involved with this, any type of New Age or any type of yoga, and you do have noticed that you do have a lot of back problems, and you do feel like it radiates up and down your back, like in movement, then, possibly that could be an open door with that. Yeah.
So just to summarize where we are so far, somebody can go into a place and ostensibly there for, who maybe isn't doing all these kind of teachings on the things to the people, but by virtue of doing the postures, which are actually worshipful postures, right to Hindu gods, and being involved in the breathing, doing some, what they call this pranayama breathing. And then tied in with, well, even just that alone, let's just say they don't focus on the mind part of it. Those are potential open doors, because, we all our concept of the podcast that we do and all our teachings we do talks about open doors for demonic spirits. Spirits just can't jump on a person. Hosea 4:6 says, my people, God's people, he says, perish for lack of knowledge. So people, good believers, attenders, church attenders can go into some of these places and just be under that covering, right?
Sure.
And they have opened the door potentially for these, even out of ignorance, right? Because most people many people aren't going to willingly go in and, purposely join something occultic. They're not going to know what they're getting into, and that can be an open door for the torment for the spirits to come upon them.
Right. And with my client too, that's a very good point of that, because, she came under this, she was under agreement, and she was under the authority of that owner, and that owner had decided to unleash a whole new spiritual contemplation over the yoga that was done there. So yeah, you're right underneath it. All
right. Well, many people, I'm sure you're listening to this, we're going to say, well, I don't want that. I would never be part of something like that. And so you can see out there in the world in different places that you will see signs for even something like Christian yoga. Say we have Christian yoga in certain places that are ostensibly even, quote, Christian organizations, maybe even churches, can have these Christian yoga classes. So the question is, can there be Christian, presumably, quote, healthy yoga?
Well, that's kind of an oxymoron, really, Don, because it's like saying someone is a Christian Buddhist or a Christian Hindu. There's a conflict here. Even the Hindus say that you can't do that. So again, it's like that tree, that tree. If you're going to be rooted and grounded in Hinduism, then you're going to get the fruit of that. I mean, you're basically submitting yourself to these gods that are attached to these postures that you're learning. Number one, attached to, because a lot of people will say, okay, well, I don't get in, there's no spiritual component to it. Right. There's no breathing component. There's no meditation component to what I'm doing. But the postures were actually set up to worship in and invite in and channel in these gods. And it's about being in union with them.
Yeah, I think in agreement. I think that's an important point, because you talk about the fruit. I mean, in the Bible, Paul talks in Galatians about the fruit of the Spirit, right? We should have the fruit of the Spirit in our lives: love and joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control in them. And if people have demonic spirits in them, there's fruit that comes forth from that. So this can just be another aspect of that if you're in that environment and open the door for these spirits or other spirits to come in because of that, then there's going to be a reaping of that, right? And certainly an open door for demonic torment.
Yep. And so we know, as a believer, we've got the Holy Spirit. So we're very clear to say you're not going to be possessed, but you could be oppressed. You could come under, a mind-binding spirit. You could come under a spirit of deaf and dumb, things that would come over you through the meditation, things that would bring you into confusion or, not being able to think straight. I mean, I would say that a lot of that stuff would come over. And then again, that Kundalini spirit that could come up and wrap around that spine. Very, very clear.
Well, and I think that's an important point to emphasize, because we don't spend a lot of effort or focus on trying to understand exactly how and where certain spirits came into a person. And there are a bunch of different open doors, and spirits will invite in other spirits. We kind of use the cockroach analogy, where you see one, you see others. And so the issue isn't, well, what did I get? What spirits? Well, yes, we can talk about that and speculate and even try to figure that out. But a lot of times it's like, it really is not as important how the spirits got there. It's the fact that they did get there, dealing with through open doors, dealing with them closing the doors, and then calling these spirits out, and then keeping the doors closed. Right. So this is just one of many different occultic activities people can get involved in: Ouija boards, seances, people doing horoscopes, following that diligently, going to psychics. Any number of these can, because we open ourselves up to the open demonic realm, even out of ignorance and in error, and for these spirits to come upon us. And so I think that's just, so I guess our point would be, and I know this is probably going to offend some, but so be it, I guess, that I think that's a good way of saying it. The Christian yoga, you really can't pair them together in the same sentence, right? So
no, not if you're uniting with Hindu gods.
Exactly. So what's a believer to do? What do we suggest to people? Like you say, Christians can't be demon possessed, but we can be demonically oppressed. So what do we say to a person who's belonging to a yoga class, or or thinking, well, I really like the exercise, I like the stretching part of it. I mean, what are they supposed to do?
Go to Jazzercise. No.
Lay on the couch until the feeling goes away. That's what Mark Twain used to say. When I feel like exercising, I just lay down till the feeling goes away. But,
No. There's other alternatives certainly to yoga. I just think you have to be really careful, because a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, listen, you know what? I'm well aware." Like Ruth, my client, she was well aware, but even though she was strong enough and she thought she was able enough, what kind of spiritual template are you setting for those that are weaker?
Why do that? Well, why do that? Why put yourself under that? I mean, usually I think sometimes it's pride, right? They say, well, I'm strong enough. I can go. It doesn't bother.
Yeah.
And people will say the same things about movies that they watch or music. Oh, I don't listen to the lyrics, or I don't, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah, well.
The eyes and the ears, the windows of the soul.
Sure.
I mean, I think many times we have seen people affected by that, and it's it's so. I think that's a key thing. Many people, well, I don't focus on that part of it, but why would you want to put yourself at risk for that?
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think the enemy is I don't think he's stupid. I think he's pretty wily. Exactly. So, like you said, even though we can't qualify certainly what spirits are going to come in to that. There may be some antichrist spirits. There may be some other things that come in. Doubt, unbelief, anything. I don't know.
Mind binding. I think that's a good one. Double-mindedness,
double-mindedness.
Confusion, maybe religious spirits.
You may not connect it. And I think that's the deal. A lot of people can't actually connect. They'll say, oh, well, that's nonsense, because it may not have happened at exactly the same time where I went to yoga and then all of a sudden I started being confused. The enemy just doesn't do it that way. He could wade you out and bring it in at any time, and so that you're not going to make that connection. Think about things that you go to the doctor for, and then he tells you, oh, this is what you did like a year ago. You don't get that connection. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But even though you think you may be strong enough to be able to pull this off, you're actually could be causing a stumbling block for people that are weaker by actually endorsing it and saying, I'm going. And what if that next person has so much collateral damage because of you going and they've gone? So I don't know. I think it's unwise. And there's an easy way out. If you've gone, don't feel bad, because deliverance and, calling the spirits out that could have come in through that open door are certainly
You start with repenting, and receiving forgiveness for that. And just see, deliverance, exactly. We talk about, maybe you need some deliverance from that, or going through that. You'll see as your life unfolds, but just recognize it as an open door for demonic torment.
And this may be the open door that you haven't looked at. Maybe you've addressed the other ones and you still are struggling with confusion and double-mindedness and doubt. This could be a door that you just kind of breezed right by.
Yep.
A lot of people do, because, rationalization and justification are big tools of the enemy, aren't they, Don?
Well, they are. Exactly. It's in our fleshly mind, and we want to just, try to rationalize our way out of it. But I think, just as I think the other important point you mentioned is that it can just be a bad witness to others as well, and maybe you are strong enough to resist it and not be, I don't know, but it's not a good sign. It's not a good witness to others. And it's just, the demonic kingdom, I think, is much wiser and much more seductive than sometimes we give them credit for. And so,
we've acclimated to all this stuff. We live here.
We accept it. Yeah. So anyways, I think you nailed it, though. That's it. Get a different type of exercise. Hey, there's nothing wrong with stretching. Call it stretching. Do stretching exercises, but stay away from anything with the name yoga attached to it.
Yeah, and just go ahead and look up some of the stretches that maybe you've learned, the different positions you've learned. If you take it back all the way, you're going to be able to see the gods that they're actually connected to. And so, different type of exercise, different type of
all 330 million of them.
Yeah. Gosh, well, that sounds like an awfully big assault in the demonic kingdom too, for a lot of open doors. I don't know that, we look about different disciplines, but anything that could open you to 330 million different God things.
I've not heard that before. So that's exactly.
That sounds like a big army that is out there.
Exactly. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Hopefully gave you something to think about. Or maybe if you've got friends or family that are involved in it, something you can share with them about yoga that you may have learned here. Just before we close, we'd just like to mention 3 brief things. As always, we would welcome very much and appreciate a review from you on iTunes. If you go to our podcast page, you'll see a link that will click and take you over to iTunes. If you join up there, find our podcast, deliveranceministry.fm, leave a review for us, and then tell us on the website that you did that, and we'll send you a free gift, a copy of our downloadable manual, Deliverance Ministry, Plain and Simple. Second thing is we've got our resource library there on our websites. Actually, there's links on both the Counseling and the Academy website. Just look for free resources. We have all our podcasts, our articles, really blogs, PowerPoints, a lot of our free resources in one place. You sign up one time, you have access to everything. You go on our email list. We'll notify you when we come out with new content. So we encourage you to do that. And finally, I want to tell you briefly about a new program that we are implementing called the Warrior Partners Program. And basically, it's an opportunity for you to help us in two major areas. One is basically establish a scholarship fund to help people who need deliverance and may not have the resources for it. And secondly, help us invest resources in producing materials to train and equip believers around the world in the ministry of deliverance. It takes time, it takes skills, equipment to produce these resources. We would very much be blessed if you consider partnering with us. There will be links in this show page here and on our website, the Warrior Partners Program. There's opportunities for one-time giving. You can make a monthly pledge by your credit card. Very easy to do. We hope that you will prayerfully consider that.
We're good ground.
Yes, I believe good ground. There's lots of, you can see the success stories there. Hopefully these podcasts have blessed you and other things we're doing. I mean, we would appreciate it, and I can tell you the funds will be used, wisely and for the Lord's work. So with that, we'd like to conclude this podcast on yoga. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for sending us suggestions for future podcasts. We look through those. We want to churn out content that's meaningful for you, and we encourage you to sign up once again on iTunes to be and our resource page to be notified of future content. So thank you for listening, and God bless you.